Chapter 321. Cold sweat broke out on Smith's forehead when he heard Z's words. It was true. Z's style of doing things was to leave a warning every time. She would also use many online platforms to tell everyone why she was doing this. Those people were all guilty of heinous crimes. But even so, doing this would be challenging their authority. So he had to catch Z. And capture her alive. What should we do? Smith couldn't make up his mind. The person was insistent. She wouldn't plant a bomb here. All the records show that Z wouldn't hurt ordinary people during her operations. This time will be no exception. She's playing psychological warfare with you. Smith was in a dilemma. Although the person she hired was a psychologist. What if Z really planted a bomb here? There were so many people on Fifth Avenue. If there was an explosion, it would be over. Z was really cunning. Every time, she would blend in with the crowd and pick the most crowded places to attack. Since Mr. Smith is having a hard time deciding, I'll do something small for you to see. She knew that Hoshino was ready. She moved her finger. Bang! The sound of an explosion came from not far away. Smith's expression changed. He shouted, "Stop! Z, stop it right now. Don't be nervous. This is only the first one. There are 7 or 8 others buried nearby. Mr. Smith, I just said that you have to make a choice. Also, if you shoot randomly, you will hit a bomb. F***CKU. Smith thought of this sentence in Wuxia at that moment. He was really annoying. At that time, when she saw Smith's expression, she knew that she was about to succeed. So, she calmly put her hand behind her back and touched the magnet that was stuck to her back. How could she not have some escape tools when she was in this world? As expected, Smith's face turned green when he heard her words. He shouted, "Don't shoot." The sound of an explosion could cause panic. The crowd was no longer as calm as before. Once they heard that there were more bombs, they started to panic and wanted to escape. Taking advantage of that moment, she forcefully tore it apart. The powerful suction from the iron sucking device caused her to fall back dozens of meters effortlessly. Her entire body was directly glued to the celebratory iron horse. It would be a lie to say that it didn't hurt, but the most important thing was to escape. Because it was obvious that the person had his eyes on her when she retreated. It was precisely because his movements were too methodical that she remembered this moment. If it weren't for her escape, he would have grabbed onto her hand with one move. In fact, at that time, he did grab her long sleeve, but the fabric was too fragile and broke. But even so, she, who had never shown her face in front of others, revealed a flaw. That was her long hair, which was exposed outside. She couldn't care less. In the midst of the chaos, she heard the police say, F***CK. Z tricked him again. There was no bomb. They were firecrackers. The sound just now was from firecrackers. At that time, she thought that there would be a lot of trouble. She didn't expect that after she came out for more than 10 days, that person had already disappeared from the fifth path. That person's identity was also quite mysterious. The reason why she called him mysterious was because even she had not found out who that person was. The only thing he knew was that the man was from Wuxia, just like him. Fujio raised her eyes again and looked at Qin Mo, whose white shirt was still stained with blood. Chapter 322. Qin Mo looked down and saw that the young man was looking at him. He didn't know what he was thinking, but his eyes were a little numb. He thought for a moment. The kid was probably scared. That's right, the Almighty thought that his little brother was scared. Maybe it was a natural protective mentality. Qin Mo had automatically ignored how ruthless Fujio was when she kicked him just now. Anyway, the young man looked dazed, and there was still a little blood on his face. He was no different from a broken kid. Although he was still too handsome. But he was still dazed. Qin Mo's eyes couldn't help but warm up when he thought of this. He took out his wallet and put the compensation amount on the bar counter. Because the compensation amount was too much, the hotel bodyguards who rushed over didn't know what to do next. After all, the things on the ground weren't worth that much money. Qin Mo grabbed Fujio and walked through the noisy crowd as if there was no one else around. The lights above his head were still flashing, and the music was the kind that could make one's heart race. If it was someone else wearing a white shirt in a nightclub, you would think that he was conservative. But that person was the Almighty, and everything seemed very different. Not only was he untainted by the mud, but he also had that kind of abstinence and indifference, like a god who had fallen from heaven. The youth he was holding in his hand was extremely demonic. With a black leather jacket and silver hair, he was simply an illusion of a demon. Both of them were so good-looking, but their temperaments were different. One black and one white, which created such an impactful scene. The fujoshis in the crowd felt their hearts racing. This kind of hand-holding was so sweet. Oh, they didn't know why this man was so domineering. What did he want to do with the young man? But the fight just now was so cool. So cool that even now, when they saw Qin Mo's side profile, they couldn't believe that there was such a perfect man in the world. Hearing the gasps around her, Fujio curled up her lips. It was quite interesting to be with the Almighty. Even the fight was so fun. The bodyguards didn't stop them. And there were still broken wine bottles on the ground behind them. The Almighty must have been a person who liked to pick fights in nightclubs in the past. Fujio was wrong about this. Qin Mo never picked fights in Jiang City. Who would be stupid enough to pick a fight with the young master of the Qin family? Unless he wanted to die. Qin Mo also went to nightclubs because it was hard for him to fall asleep. None of the young masters from the military region dared to provoke them. Especially since everyone knew that Qin Mo didn't like people touching him. Therefore, he didn't even dare to arrange a girl for him. It wasn't like they hadn't made arrangements before. Qin Mo took a puff of his cigarette and told them to go where they should go. That was the most chaotic year in Qin Mo's life, but he didn't do anything out of line. Therefore, many people thought that young Master Qin liked men, so they kept sending young men to the private room. Qin Mo laughed. He swirled the wine in his hand, exuding an aura of gentleness. I'm a man with a handle. You want me to touch a man with a handle? Heh, I don't have that hobby. Get lost. This was what he said to the young masters in the military compound. Then, he stood up and buttoned his shirt. He was the cold and inviolable young Master Qin again. It seemed like a joke, but it was filled with warning. Ever since then, no one dared to mess with Qin Mo anymore. Chapter 323. She didn't expect the Almighty to take her to the corner of the wall. He looked back and said calmly, "Are you still afraid?" Afraid? Afraid. Fujio didn't react for a moment. But then she remembered her stupid performance just now. She immediately followed the Almighty's words and said, "I didn't feel anything when I kicked him, but I was a bit stunned when I saw so much blood." Qin Mo stopped in his tracks and turned to look at her. The two of them were very close, so close that it seemed like the Almighty's breath could hit her face. Just when Fujio thought the Almighty had seen through her lie, she saw the man raise his hand and wipe her face. His expression was still very indifferent, like a big brother. "So don't look at the blood, the eye drops are wasted." Fujio. Is that the logic? But whatever the Almighty said, it was true. Fujio felt lucky that she remembered what happened just now and put on that expression. Otherwise, someone as smart as the Almighty would have treated her in a different way. After returning to the room, the Almighty really gave her another eye drop. Although the pain this time wasn't as strong as before, it was still a little painful. The difference was that after giving her the eye drop, the Almighty directly turned off the light and went back to his own bed. Don't ask why, she could still hear the sound with her eyes closed. There was always a question in her heart. According to Fujio's personality, she would definitely solve it. But it wasn't realistic to directly ask, "Brother Mo, have you been to the Fifth Avenue?" If he wasn't careful, the Almighty might notice something and expose himself. So how to ask was a skill. But, since she was already living as Fujio, let bygones be bygones. At least let bygones be bygones. Because now, she had found something that was far more important than catching those who had committed the most heinous crimes, something that she should persist in. It was to let He Honghua enjoy life, be friendly to her friends, fight alongside the Almighty, and participate in the national competition. She didn't know who said it. In this world, there was no end to catching evil. Just like when there was light, there would be shadows. When we are cruel to others, it must be to protect the people important to us. If not, stealing, insulting, nitpicking, and playing tricks. The darkness that was slowly evolving would eventually become a devil. She had encountered too many cases in her past life. Do not judge the sinner by his sex, nor by his age. Even high school students could laugh proudly after bullying others in school. Even a middle school student could pretend to be pitiful after stealing something. Not to mention some adults. However, the truth is always tiring or nauseating. When you look into the abyss is watching you. This sentence was always so reasonable. In the past, Hoshino had been worried about her for a long time. He was worried that she would not be able to control herself and use other means to punish those criminals. In fact, even Fujio herself was afraid that she would become unscrupulous and get rid of whoever she wanted. Just like how she was today. It was very savage. The Almighty was really someone who knew how to stop her. Chapter 324. If the Almighty was really that person, that was even less of a problem. Because in that person's eyes, she had always been a woman. And now she was a boy. Fujio thought about it and lay down on the bed. So, if we follow this equation then, Fujio's identity gave her great protection. She couldn't let the Almighty know that she was a girl. If the Almighty was really that person, with that person's style of doing things, he would definitely have checked on her once. Thinking about it this way, it seemed to explain why the Almighty wanted to catch her after seeing her in the game and knowing that she was a hacker. Was it just because she knew how to play games? Fujio put a question mark in her head. What if it wasn't because she was playing games, but because the Almighty suspected that she was Z? That would explain why the Almighty always set traps for her when he was talking to her. And he always looked like he was watching over her. He probably found out that Fujio hadn't been to Fifth Avenue 3 years ago, and she was still a middle school student at that time, so it was even more impossible for her to be Z. That was why being a high school student was such a good identity. The more Fujio thought about it, the more her lips curled up. Chin Mo, who was lying on the other bed, didn't hear any movement. He sat up with his long legs on the ground and said in a calm voice, "Are you still afraid?" Fujio heard Chin Mo's question and knew that the Almighty seemed to have misunderstood something. But at this time, if she said she wasn't afraid, she would really give herself away. She could only reply, "A little, there's always blood in front of me." She didn't like blood, and when she realized it, she realized that she had used too much strength. Fujio couldn't even imagine what would have happened if the Almighty hadn't pulled her into his arms in time and covered her eyes. Would she have crushed that person's internal organs? Fujio shook her head, as if she wanted to get rid of these emotions. It was indeed a serious matter. Who knew that the Almighty's next words would be, "If you're afraid, come and sleep"? Fujio was shocked. He wasn't stunned by those words. It was the Almighty's tone that said, "Because you are my little brother, I will indulge you. No one else should even think about touching my bedding." Fujio shook her head decisively. "Brother Mo, I don't sleep well. That's all. It's fine as long as I know Brother Mo is beside me." Sleep over there? Hee hee, what a joke. Wasn't this asking her to walk right into a trap? But the Almighty must be coaxing her like a child again. Otherwise, he wouldn't have asked her to go over and sleep with him. Unfortunately, at this moment, Chin Mo saw the youngster as a rebellious boy trying to be brave. Chin Mo wanted to leave the youngster some self-respect, so he turned to turn on the table lamp. Fujio couldn't open her eyes at this time, but she could still feel the gentle light. It was so strange that there was such a man in the world. Cold as ice, black-bellied, but gentle to the bone. The premise is, you have to be his younger brother. When Fujio thought of this, she couldn't help but let out a long sigh. The more it was like this, the more likely the Almighty would retaliate after finding out her secret. So, let's hurry up and finish the training. Chapter 325. The next day. The sky wasn't completely bright yet. Fujio stood in the bathroom and began to check if there was anything wrong with her. After yesterday, she became more vigilant. The door must be locked. In front of the mirror, she wrapped the bandages and put on her sweater and coat. After washing her hair, it looked even fluffier. When she opened the door, she could see the Almighty's peaceful sleeping face. His hands were on his chest, and when his eyelashes fell, she could see circles and circles of shadows. He looked like a mixed-blood aristocrat. Who did the Almighty look like this? His genes were so good. Forget it. While the Almighty was sleeping, she would take the phone and look at it for a while. She hadn't replied to Baby Feng's WeChat message from yesterday. But she didn't expect that when she got the phone, it wasn't Baby Feng's urgent call on the screen. It was his brother, Manager Feng. Manager Feng was very direct. Z, go on Weibo and post photos. Don't be like CEO Qin. That guy's Weibo is full of weeds. Fu Jiu thought about it and replied, I don't like to post on Weibo, but I can do it for the Almighty. What do you think? Manager Feng was still at the domestic airport, planning to fly to Tokyo. After dealing with a business in Jiang City, of course he had to go to Tokyo. This was a friendly match. Although it was a friendly match, once the country collapsed, its meaning changed completely. If they lost here, how could they have the face to attend the national competition? Manager Feng was only thinking about this, but when he saw the WeChat message, he immediately became excited. Do it for CEO Qin? Are you sure? Yes, I have the Almighty's password before. Isn't it just the same password as the game? Fu Jiu lay back on the bed lazily with a lollipop in her mouth and a phone in her hand. Only then did she feel alive, and her interest was aroused. Manager Feng thought about it. With CEO Qin's indulgence of Spade, it shouldn't be a problem to post on Weibo, so he agreed without hesitation. Then post it with photos. Fu Jiu smiled lightly and replied, no problem. Even if she wanted to post photos, she also needed to post photos. The Almighty probably didn't like to show his face in public, but it would be a pity if Qin Mo's fans didn't enjoy the benefits of such a gorgeous sleeping face. Therefore, after Fu Jiu got out of bed, she tilted her body and took the photo from the right to the left. She used the morning light to blur Qin Mo's handsome side profile, leaving only a smooth curve that made people think of how handsome the person in the photo was just by looking at it. Of course, there was also that handsome and dignified sleeping posture. The Almighty was too clean. It was as if he had fused with the light of dawn. Fu Jiu's smiling eyes froze for a moment when she saw the photo she had taken. There was no need to ask anymore. She was almost certain. The Almighty was that person from back then. Because the curve of his chin was highly similar to the memory from 3 years ago. He couldn't see the person's face clearly, so he had once asked who this person was. He immediately had the answer. However, Fu Jiu only paused for a moment. Since they had already figured it out yesterday, there was no need to be conflicted now. And one thing was, she recognized the Almighty. The Almighty didn't recognize her. Which was good. Chapter 326. At this time, she had to thank Manager Feng for the follow-up measures that Almighty Qin didn't remember the password for his official Weibo account. Manager Feng changed Almighty Qin's official Weibo password to the game password. That was why Fu Jiu came up so smoothly. Of course, she had another way. As long as she took Almighty Qin's laptop, she would be able to find the preview record and use it as a starting point to crack the password. However, now that she knew that the Almighty was the person who had made her suffer a loss before, she didn't know what to do. Of course, Fu Jiu wouldn't leave any traces behind. The Almighty was so smart. He had to be on guard. But such a picture was taken. All the Qin fans exploded. Holy sh*t, what did I just see? What did I see? Early in the morning, I'm just checking in as usual and watering Almighty Qin's Weibo. I never expected Almighty Qin to post on Weibo, but what is this? Photos. Sleeping photos? Hee hee, I must be dreaming. This is the first time I've seen Almighty Qin's selfie. Oh, he's so handsome that I'm crying. Why does Almighty Qin look so inviolable even when he's asleep? I'm turning gay. The man upstairs is crazy. Count me in, I want to be gay too. Mom, my nose is bleeding. It was not only Qin fans who felt this way. Even the team members who had woken up early were stunned. One of them posted, Captain, what's wrong with you? Captain. Terror. Lin Feng scrolled through Weibo while shouting towards the bathroom. Yunhu, come out and take a look. Did Captain suffer a shock? Yunhu walked over, his upper body naked and his lower body in a pair of black pants. His manly abs were on full display, still damp. What's wrong? Look at this photo. Lin Feng raised his phone for Yunhu to take a look while he was jealous of his figure. Yunhu glanced up and paused. Captain. Send a photo? On Weibo? Or was it a sleeping photo? F***ck. Is Supreme Alliance finally using Qin Mo's beauty to fight for territory with us? This was forwarded by Hei Qi, one of the top 3 in the country. Unforgivable. Why does this have to be a world where looks are the most important? Unfair. This is really unfair. Hei Qi, also known as Fatty Hei. Seeing him speak, the crowd was amused. A clever netizen commented, "Be a good boy, Fatty. Don't mess around. You're even worse off when it comes to your figure." The dark-skinned Fatty looked at his own fat arms and his bulging beer belly, then looked at the man in the photo who could almost be photographed in a magazine. He instantly felt as if he had been dealt 10,000 blows. "Ha ha ha, big Fatty. Don't be sad. Come and cry on Uncle's shoulder." Coco had always loved to play online. As soon as he heard that his captain had posted a photo on Weibo, he immediately rushed over to join in the fun. Black Fatty. Go to hell. Of course, apart from these, there was also a post that caused quite a stir. Because the person who forwarded the message was none other than Xiao Jing, the captain of the national champion team. His message was very much in line with his taciturn character. There was only a question mark. By the way, there was also Meng on Weibo. Seeing Xiao Jing's Weibo post, Qin Mo and Xiao Jing became even more excited. Almighty Xiao, just admit it. Do you only care about Almighty Qin? I couldn't help it when I saw Almighty Qin's photo of him sleeping. Not bad, this is very Almighty Xiao. Chapter 327. Yes, who took the photo? This angle, this lighting, they knew Almighty Qin didn't like to show his face, so they deliberately blurred Almighty Qin's face, leaving only that graceful arc and Almighty Qin's unique noble temperament. The appearance of such a magnificent sleeping face was so sudden that Qin Mo's fans were so excited that they forgot the most important question. Now they were reminded of it. Another wave of heated discussion came. As an 18-year-old selfie lover, I can responsibly tell the beauties that this angle is impossible to take a selfie, and the selfie stick is useless, unless it's with the help of other external forces. I think even if Almighty Qin took a selfie, he wouldn't use a selfie stick. Let me summarize what the 2 floors above said. The photo was definitely taken by someone else. So, who is this someone else? From the photo, Almighty Qin probably hasn't woken up yet. Who could be next to Almighty Qin when he was sleeping? I have something to report. Isn't the Supreme Alliance training in Tokyo now? It said that 2 people share a room, you know. According to Almighty Qin's personality, he would definitely live alone. Our Almighty Qin is very obsessed with cleanliness. Everyone knows that. Maybe it's Manager Feng, that's the only answer I can think of. I don't think it's right. Would Almighty Qin open the door and let Manager Feng take a photo of his sleeping face? Almighty Qin would only smile at Manager Feng and ask him to leave, so this answer doesn't make sense. That's right. This was the reaction their captain would have. In front of their captain, Manager Feng's foxtail was especially restrained, probably because he knew he couldn't beat the captain. So, what was going on? As an internal member of the Supreme Alliance, Lin Feng also couldn't figure out who took this photo at this time. According to yesterday's room allocation, the captain did sleep alone. At this time, 8:20 in the morning, no one would dare to enter the captain's room, right? Only student Feng in the suite guessed the answer after seeing the Weibo post. The person who took this photo was very likely his idol. Why did Almighty Qin become the protagonist of everything he imagined? In his fantasy, he woke up with his idol, took a photo with him while washing his face, and posted it on Weibo. His brother's mission was to post a Weibo post every day after becoming a professional player to gain popularity. In the end, student Feng felt wronged and needed to calm down. On the other side, after Fu Jiao posted on Weibo, she logged out and sent an OK gesture to Manager Feng. Manager Feng also saw the photo, but he didn't reply. Instead, he silently looked up at the sky covered by the haze outside Jiang City Airport. This has nothing to do with him. He was a man about to get on a plane. Well, little spade, good luck. Seeing that Manager Feng didn't reply to her message, Fu Jiao thought that he had boarded the plane, so she didn't care. She got up, took a lollipop from the bedside table, and put it in her mouth. She heard that there was a mobile version of the hero. She could download it on her phone and register to level up. However, at this time, The fans on Weibo had all turned into all-round detectives. Even some of the members of the other battle teams couldn't help but send private messages to Lin Feng. Chapter 328. At this moment, Yunhu glanced at the photo on Weibo again. He took a sip of mineral water. I can roughly guess who it is. You can guess. Lin Feng jumped up in excitement, grabbing onto Yunhu's arm. Who is it? Who is it? Yunhu glanced down at his fair collarbone, frowning. Then he enlarged the photo. Take your time, there's a bright spot. Since you already know, why didn't you tell me directly? Lin Feng wanted to pull his hair again. Yunhu pulled his shirt over his head. Because I wanted to use this chance to train your slow reflexes. I can give you a hint. Captain might not have slept alone last night. When Lin Feng heard this, he knew it was impossible to get an answer from Yunhu. But Captain didn't sleep alone? So exciting. What's the bright spot? Lin Feng caressed his chin, his big round eyes looking at the photo on Weibo. Why couldn't he see any bright spot? The brightest spot was the captain himself. Even though his face wasn't very clear, it was especially well defined under the light. That faint shadow was like an angel whose wings had been broken and was lying in the holy light, dazzling everyone's eyes. Who could see anything else? But once intelligence was involved, it was a huge problem. Lin Feng lowered his head, staring at the photo carefully. Still nothing. But even if he couldn't see it, it didn't mean that the smart MO and Geo CP fans couldn't see it. Of course, there were some smart old Qin fans who weren't CP fans. Beauties, look carefully, don't you think this photo is weird? What's weird? Cut off the picture, the arrow points to the lollipop, black ring, and some eye drops on the bedside table. Let's not talk about the latter, just the lollipop and black ring. The Almighty never wears a ring. Fine, let's just say the Almighty bought one for himself when he went to Tokyo. Let's have a good half-cent lollipop. The Almighty doesn't like sweets, much less eating lollipops. Who do you think the lollipop belongs to? Someone with a tacit understanding passing by. Single dogs are fed another bowl of dog food. They don't want to talk about it so early in the morning. When they go to work they have the same tacit understanding. Wait a minute, brothers and sisters above, why don't I understand? What do you mean? It's obvious who the lollipop belongs to. Last night, that person slept in the same room as Almighty Qin. Today the person who took the photo is, you know. As a fan of Big Spade, I understand. Super +1. My Big Spade is being naughty again. The candy caught me off guard. Some of the younger fans still didn't understand. They still thought that Almighty Qin had shot it himself, and that he shouldn't be implicating others. Some Spade Z fans are too much. Do they have to link our Almighty Qin and Spade Z together? In fact, the first person to come up with this theory wasn't a Spade fan, but an old Qin fan. It was obvious that their Almighty had slept with Spade Z. What else was there to say? After all, they were all people who truly liked Almighty Qin and didn't want to cause trouble for him, so they ignored him. Chapter 329. Spades fans felt uncomfortable when they saw this sentence, but after the last online incident, they calmed down a lot. Their first reaction wasn't to retort, but to ask their big sister. Sister Turtle, what should we do? Almighty Qin's fans are saying that we are binding Almighty Qin. Sister Turtle was the rational fan from before, so she said very decisively, don't do anything. After this incident, you can see that Big Spade and Almighty Qin have a very good relationship, and Almighty Qin is also very protective of Big Spade. Since this is the case, don't let some people and some words affect their relationship. I believe everyone knows who took this photo today. Today, Big Spade is giving us sweets. Since he is giving sweets, we should also be happy. Don't pay attention to this kind of person who obviously wants attention. This topic will destroy the relationship between Big Spade and Almighty Qin. Why don't we queue up and tag Big Spade and tease him? If Manager Feng, who was sitting on the plane, knew this was how things were handled, he would definitely give Sister Turtle a thumbs up. She was so prescient. Most of Spade's fans responded to the call, and only a few of them still said something that could easily cause disputes. The funniest thing was this scene. A self-proclaimed Spade fan came out and said, "Sorry, my Big Spade definitely didn't think so much. Now I also realize that I have caused trouble for Chin's fans. I will explain to Spade's fans later. That person quickly replied to the Spade fan, "It's okay, dear, as long as you understand moi." Spade's fans were burning with rage. What was going on? What did my big Spade do to deserve an apology? That person was obviously a schemer. He was young, but he had a lot of tricks up his sleeves. I was a little rude just now, but let me say this first, I also like Big Spade, but some things shouldn't always be linked together. Yes, you are right. Sister Turtle saw that some people who liked Big Spade had become the other party's accomplices, so she stopped the meeting and went directly to Weibo to shout. Didn't they say that the photo was not sent by their Big Spade? When Sister Turtle reposted Chin Mo's Weibo post, she tagged Spade Z. She wrote, "Big Spade, next time you take a photo, remember to cover up. Look at you, you forgot to take your ring and lollipop. Don't leave too obvious traces." As soon as she saw this comment, the poster understood why everyone said it was Spade Z who took the photo of their almighty Chin. But since she had already said it, she could only pretend she didn't see anything. Anyway, she had already gotten the attention. The 2 or 3 little Spade fans were still confused, replying to her, sorry, I thought there was something wrong with you just now. Now I'll clarify with them. You're in the wrong, sorry. Thank you for clarifying the matter. As a Spade fan, I might have misunderstood you. I'm also a fan of Spade Z. I couldn't accept what you said at first, but after seeing this post, I feel that Almighty is quite righteous. Sister Turtle really wanted to ask them, what exactly did that person clarify? Where was the integrity? But she resisted. In the past, when she was writing for a website, she had encountered the same thing. Sometimes, being strong didn't mean being invincible. There were many people who had thoughts that you couldn't see through. Chapter 330. Originally, she thought that her understanding would backfire. Because in this world, there would always be people who would believe some disguised words. Her Big Spade wasn't a person who could disguise, but the other party was. So, she wouldn't make the same mistake twice. Especially when it came to protecting Spade Z. She had to be calmer and win with experience. Fortunately, she wasn't fighting alone. As soon as it came out, a lot of people reposted her, including those who really liked Spade Z and only focused on the passion that Spade Z brought them. They used it one after another to prove their strong and powerful existence. My Big Spade did it on purpose. Such a domineering attack would definitely leave evidence that he and Almighty Chin are sleeping together. Attack. Are you sure? Almighty Chin won't do it. I'll just wait for Almighty Chin to wake up and check Weibo. Yes, according to Almighty Chin's character, there will be 2 endings. One is to block Big Spade, the other is to sleep with Big Spade. Just like that, the scene changed again. An aura full of love spread out. That person is still posting to make his presence known? Sorry, people who really liked Spade Z wouldn't have any interaction with you. If you want to gain popularity, you can feel it yourself with a look. Lin Feng was still moved and frightened by Little Spade's success in sleeping with Captain. He turned his head and said to Yun Hu, "That's not right, it was Little Feng Shang who slept with Little Spade. How did he change to Captain? Do you think there was nothing between them last night?" According to Little Spade's character, he would definitely. Even if Little Spade had ulterior motives towards Captain, it wouldn't be a big deal. Obviously, there will be 2 situations. One is that he was beaten up by Captain and thrown out, and the other is that the person who was slept with was him, not Captain. Yun Hu was indeed the best player in Supreme Alliance other than the Almighty. He hit the nail on the head with one sentence. But Little Spade is really charming. I can see that someone is protecting him. Protecting? You mean those at S from Spade fans? Lin Feng wasn't stupid. They have a good grasp of the wind direction. Otherwise someone would take the opportunity to rise. After saying this, Lin Feng became excited again. Little Spade is indeed a fresh stream in our Supreme Alliance. He dared to take a photo of Captain and even used Captain's account to post on Weibo, Why could he use the Captain's account to post on Weibo? I'm sure Captain didn't post it himself, but how did Little Spade do it? You hacked Captain's system? I don't think so. Yun Hu tapped on the webpage on his phone. Our team's official Weibo isn't active, which means that Feng Yi knows about this. It's very likely that Little Spade got Feng Yi's approval before posting on Weibo. Otherwise, do you think Manager Feng, who values money as much as his life, wouldn't repost such an interactive photo? He's running away, and if the captain finds out, he'll be held responsible. That makes sense. Lin Feng slapped his forehead. Ayaya, isn't Little Spade in trouble? I wonder how Captain will punish him. I really want to see. Achoo! Fu Jiu logged out of Heroes page and logged back into the official Weibo account. Her slender fingers rubbed her nose carelessly, and her eyes paused. She was about to look at the comments that had been at S. She heard a low chuckle coming from her left side. Why are you sneezing all of a sudden? Ha! Chapter 331. As soon as Fu Jiu turned around, she was met with a pair of deep eyes, which inexplicably gave off a hazy and inviolable feeling. Did you catch a cold yesterday, or are you feeling unwell? The Almighty was still lying on the bed, the pillow pressed against his ear. His features were as handsome as a comic book, and a few strands of black hair fell on his forehead, the ends of the hair falling on his eyelashes. Even the smell of the hotel seemed to have sublimated on him. It was light and pleasant to the nose. But it didn't look good for the Almighty to wake up at this time. She had just replied to a post by someone called Sister Turtle, and she was going to check out other at S. Well, actually, it didn't matter what they were. What mattered was her reply. I'm so handsome, of course I'm the main. She had thought that her reply would be buried among all the comments. And the Almighty might not even see it. After all, the Almighty didn't like Weibo, and he definitely wouldn't go to her official Weibo to check the replies one by one. But Fu Jiu's fingers paused, and she naturally moved her phone away. No, I'm fine. Oh. Chinamo looked at her movements and raised his eyebrows. He lifted the quilt with his fingers and walked over slowly. Chinamo wasn't wearing a shirt, so his seductive waistline and well-defined chest were exposed. His mermaid lines could be seen clearly, and he looked very oppressive. Fu Jiu thought that no matter how powerful the Almighty was, he wouldn't notice that she had just sent a reply. But Chinamo bent over, leaned over, and pressed down on Fu Jiu's hand. They were very close, so close that it seemed like he was going to press her down. Secretly playing with your phone while I was sleeping? That voice was really nice, but at this moment, it made her feel that every inch of his breath that hit her ear was dangerous. What did I say? Be obedient. Chinamo freed his other hand and tapped the corner of the youngster's eye. You don't want your eyes anymore, huh? So it was about the eye inflammation. Fu Jiu thought that the Almighty had noticed something. I want them, Brother Mo, but I have to reply to your messages, right? For example, Baby Feng sent me a message yesterday. You know that Baby Feng needs to be taken care of. Manager Feng isn't here, so I have to take care of him. If I don't reply to his WeChat for a whole night, his heart will be fragile. There was a hint of coldness in Chin Mo's eyes. You're right. Right. Fu Jiu felt that God was kind to her. She was smart and didn't reveal any flaws when facing the pressure of a god. Fu Jiu didn't reveal any flaws, but she gave such an explanation. Chin Mo didn't like it very much. Baby Feng, huh? This form of address was quite intimate. He seemed to be very close to Feng Shang and Shui Yaoyao. At the thought of Shui Yaoyao's existence, he frowned subconsciously. Even the Almighty himself didn't know his expression at that time. Of course I can't let you lose contact with others. Chin Mo's voice was calm as he took the phone from Fu Jiu's hand. What do you want to reply to him? I'll help you. Fu Jiu. No matter how smart she was, she wouldn't have expected things to turn out this way. Why did the Almighty never play by the rules? At first, Chinamo really wanted to reply to Feng Shang, but when he took the youngster's phone, he saw an eye-catching Weibo reply on the screen. Chapter 332. That's it. That was the only thought in Fu Jiu's mind. After Chinamo picked up his phone, time seemed to stop between the two of them. It was empty for half a second. Chinamo lowered his eyes and looked at the youngster on the bed. The youngster was looking at him too. That face was still clean and handsome, but no matter how he looked at it, it made people want to teach him a lesson. Attack? You? Chinamo arched a brow, then his thin lips curved into a smile. He remained standing by the bed, but his left hand pressed down, supporting himself on the bed. Fu Jiu could clearly feel that the mattress had sunk a little because of the Almighty's movement. Qin Mo bent his waist and put one knee on the mattress. His legs were so long and beautiful. That handsome and noble face pressed down on her without any warning. His eyes were deep and black, like poppies in bloom, with a strong sense of abstinence. The morning sun shone on his deep and straight features, making him look even more oppressive. The two of them were so close that Fu Jiu couldn't move at all. The Almighty was so cunning that he even cut off her escape route. This position made it seem as if her entire body was trapped under him. The light minty smoke that belonged to the man assaulted her from all directions. He just looked at her. That pair of eyes that had always been indifferent seemed to be about to attack at this moment, emitting a dangerous and beautiful luster of a predator. Since you insist on being the attack, I'll have to practice with you. Let's see who's more aggressive, you or me. As Qin Mo said this, he was about to teach this troublemaker brother a lesson. His first reaction was to strip the youngster. Qin Mo's action completely alerted Fu Jiu. Brother Mo, I have something to say about this. Fu Jiu took a step back, but Qin Mo held her wrist. The Almighty didn't care. Oh, you still have something to say? When we play werewolf, everyone who is thrown out has to say something before they die. Fu Jiu looked serious. Qin Mo was interested. He wanted to hear what this naughty kid had to say. He was still talking about werewolf, so he raised his eyebrows at the youngster, signaling him to continue. Anyone who plays hero knows that offense is the best defense. Fu Jiu leaned forward, sat up straight, and kissed him on his right cheek without any warning. Her bright eyes, coupled with her silver hair, looked handsome and devilish. I want to say, Brother Mo, it's so early in the morning. Why would I think that you're interested in me when you're pounding me on the bed like that? Am I supposed to think that you're interested in me too? I can't help but kiss you. Indeed, Qin Mo didn't expect Fu Jiu to make such a move. His fingers paused, and his mood sank. His eyes darkened like the water in a deep well. Fu Jiu seized the opportunity to escape from the predicament. She stood with one hand in her pocket and sighed regretfully. Brother Mo, what do you think we should do? Just when I thought I was a little straighter, you turn me gay again. This is not good, not good. At this moment, Qin Mo was so angry that he laughed. His lips curled up faintly. He straightened his body and stepped on the floor barefooted, like a god descending from the heavens. Afterward. Chapter 333. The distance between them was even closer. Because both of them were standing. Moreover, Qin Mo grabbed Fu Jiu's collar and dragged her over. Following that strengthened posture, Qin Mo lowered his head and leaned forward, his thin lips inching closer to Fu Jiu. The perfect height difference was just like what the Tokyo girls said. If the two of them kissed, the scene would be very beautiful. But Qin Mo was still rational. How could he kiss her? He was just warning his disobedient younger brother. You're so good at talking nonsense. Tell me, how should I teach you a lesson, huh? Brother Mo, do you want to hear the truth? You're the big brother, so you have to let me win. Fu Jiu decided to change tactics. She didn't even try to dodge, and there was a slight smile on her lips. Qin Mo listened to the youngster's rascally tone and laughed instead of getting angry. You like meat? You like to play with your phone? You like to post on Weibo? The last one, average. Fu Jiu didn't have a habit of posting on Weibo, but what she said was true. Qin Mo was still holding on to her phone. He moved his fingers, letting her see for herself. Do you like to take photos? Brother Mo looks so handsome when he's sleeping. Of course I have to record such beautiful things. Fu Jiu smiled casually. This is the first time I'm competing with so many people, and then I'm staying in a hotel room with my good friends. It's not bad to wake up like this in the morning. It'll be a memory in the future. When Qin Mo heard the youngster's words, he loosened his long fingers and tugged at the youngster. The two of them leaned back and lay down on the bed. Fu Jiu did not expect the Almighty to make such a move. The Almighty's reaction was always different from what she expected. Therefore, he was caught off guard for a moment. When his whole body was lying on the soft mattress. She saw the Almighty raise his left hand, which was holding the phone, and his right hand pressed her head against his shoulder. Then, there was a cracking sound. Her face and the Almighty's shoulder appeared on the screen. Fu Jiu paused and tilted her head to look at the man beside her. He had never been so close to anyone before, but he was really happy. Since it's a memory, it's more meaningful to take a photo together. Qin Mo's voice was very calm, but his attitude was like he would try his best to satisfy his younger brother no matter what he wanted. In addition, he had always been very resistant to taking photos. At this moment, he actually felt that the feeling of taking a photo with another person wasn't so bad after all. It should be said that it was not bad. Qin Mo's thin lips curled up, and his side profile was so handsome that even Fu Jiu wanted to whistle. The Almighty was so handsome that he didn't leave anyone a way out. This expression doesn't look good. Fu Jiu took the phone over to delete it. Qin Mo reached out to stop the youngster. Your embarrassed expression is enough to make me laugh for a year. Keep it. Fu Jiu, why was she so touched just now? The Almighty's purpose for memory was to watch her make a fool of herself? Then I'll take another one. She was so handsome, she couldn't lose to the Almighty. This time, Qin Mo let Fu Jiu be. The two of them were still in the same position, lying on the bed. The difference was that this time, Fu Jiu included the Almighty. The first time the two of them took a photo together was in bed. Only Fu Jiu and Qin Mo. One was rebellious, while the other was domineering and indifferent, thought nothing of it. Ordinary people would definitely think a lot when they saw that picture. Chapter 334. So handsome. Fu Jiu looked at the photo and whistled, with a devilish smile on her face. Just as she finished praising her handsomeness, the Almighty took away her phone and said in a deep voice, "Go drink your medicine." My phone. Confiscated. Qin Mo stood up and walked back to his bed, probably to find something to wear. Fu Jiu's mood now was only comforting herself with good food. She also stood up and took her wallet. Brother Mo, what do you want to eat? I'll go get it. Most hotels provided free breakfast, and it was a buffet. Especially in a star-rated hotel like this, the breakfast was even better. But there was still a charge to bring the food to the room. Qin Mo buttoned up the last button on his shirt and immediately said in a businesslike manner, "Let's go together after I wash up." Okay. Fu Jiu smiled, looking exceptionally handsome. Boys were different from girls. He said he was going to wash his face and rinse his mouth. Girls washing up included eyeliner, eyebrows, BB cream, and other follow-up procedures. So it was definitely different in terms of time. In less than 3 minutes, the two of them walked out of the room and went down the elevator side by side. The hotel's restaurant was located in the lobby on the 2nd floor. Dark carpets covered the floor, and gorgeous chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Below the lights was an oval marble table, on which many colorful dishes were placed. There were Western food, Chinese food, and Japanese food. There were also fruits cut into flower shapes, which stretched down like a long dragon. In addition to these, there were also busy waiters. Because they were in Tokyo, they were also dressed as deacons. Some of them were pouring milk for the guests. They were wearing black suits and pure white gloves, which added a sense of gentleness to them. Hotel guests could choose food from here with the dining tickets in their room cards. Here, the food must be fresh. If no one came to pick it up after 10 minutes, the waiters would bring a new batch of food. Fu Jiu and Qin Mo chose a distance from the floor-to-ceiling window. From this angle, they could see the most prosperous Tokyo streets outside the hotel. Their appearances naturally attracted many people's attention. In the past, Fu Jiu only felt that she was handsome, so she didn't feel much about it. But now that she was with this god, it was indeed. It was mainly because the Almighty looked like a noble young master who was here for morning tea. His every move exuded nobility. Compared to the Almighty, she ate a lot. She didn't know how the Almighty's stomach worked. He only ate so little. Qin Mo also wanted to ask Fu Jiu this question. He glanced at the 3 empty plates in the youngster's hands and finally convinced himself that he was still growing in puberty. Otherwise, I really don't know where this guy puts his food. I'm not satisfied yet. Go get another plate of fried rice. Fu Jiu stuffed one hand into her pocket. She didn't feel like she ate much at all. Brother Mo, what else do you want? I'll bring it over. Qin Mo thought about it and felt that the way some parents did things was good. They let their children do more things for them. This would give them a sense of achievement, right? Black tea. Okay. China Mo looked at the youngster's tall and straight back, then casually looked at his phone screen. Spade Z's Weibo account hadn't been logged out, so it was obvious that he was tagging and commenting. It was quite interesting to watch. Chapter 335. That was a message that had been replied to many times. That was why he could see it so easily. Look here, don't put our almighty Qin and Spade Z together, understand? There were actually two types of messages like this. First, someone didn't like being tied up. Second, they wanted to attract attention. Obviously, this person was the second type. Otherwise, he wouldn't have kept replying. I was a bit impulsive just now, but let me say this first, I like Big Spade too. Whether he liked Spade Z or not was another matter. After Qin Mo clicked on that person's message, he only had one feeling. This person was imitating Spade Z in everything, and wanted to become an internet celebrity. Qin Mo was a businessman. As a businessman, it was easy to see the essence through appearances. It wasn't impossible that Spade Z could attract attention and wanted to spend money on him. Of course, Qin Mo didn't rule out the possibility that this person might have really liked Spade Z from the start. But this liking wasn't pure. First, he pretended to be a fan, then he imitated Spade Z, and finally, he posted such a message to attract attention. Anyone with a brain could see what he was thinking. This reply must have been avoided by the true Spade fans through the manipulation of public opinion. But some people couldn't see through it and kept interacting with that person. Almighty, I know you are a Spade Z fan too, that's why you said such words. It's to make my Big Spade better. It's okay, good luck. That person replied, I love Big Spade the most, hug. Then, a few people started replying happily. I want to touch him. I caught Almighty. I realized he is similar to my Big Spade. He speaks so righteously, I'm a fan too. The topic that had already died down was stirred up again. Those who claimed to be Spade Z's fans didn't realize they had become accomplices to hurt Spade Z. They said they liked him, but they were helping a person who was trying to imitate Spade Z to become famous. In fact, Qin Mo didn't care what this person was planning. But he didn't want his brother to see such a disgusting thing. If it wasn't good enough to guide the public opinion, he would add more. This time, Qin Mo didn't post on Weibo directly. Instead, after 2 glances at the reposts, he accurately locked onto a person called Sister Turtle. Then he clicked on her nickname and sent a private message. I'll post something about someone on Weibo later. Is there a problem with it? Sister Turtle had imagined many times how their Big Spade would send her a private message on Weibo. But she didn't expect Almighty Qin to send her a private message first. Even Sister Turtle, an experienced and knowledgeable white-collar worker, almost choked on her water. However, they were all people in the workplace, so their words were straightforward. No problem. Sister Turtle didn't ask why Almighty Qin came to talk to her. Smart people would understand once they saw the things on Weibo. Just now, she was still worried that the scheming person would appear again. After all, no matter how good you were to yourself, you couldn't control the thoughts of others. Somehow he could empathize with them. Her heart ached for Big Spade. The youth who said, justice may be late, but it is never absent. She was being hurt, but some people who said they liked her became her accomplices. This matter must be stopped. Sister Turtle heaved a sigh of relief at the Almighty's timely appearance. Chapter 336. Sister Turtle was not a fan of the CP. She also knew that there should be a deep brotherhood between esports players. Since the last incident, it could be seen that Almighty Qin was really good to their Big Spade. But someone called their Big Spade. Wasn't that too? Sister Turtle shook her head. As a professional woman, she didn't want to be like those cute high school students. She just needed to protect Big Spade. Sister Turtle thought about it and waited for the Weibo post about someone mentioned by Almighty Qin to be sent again. At this time, in a star hotel in Tokyo, Qin Mo's fingers moved, logged into his official Weibo, and posted the edited photo of the youngster. He edited a few words in a very simple tone. Both offensive and defensive are shown immediately. Sister Turtle's computer page stayed on Qin Mo's Weibo. When she saw the photo, she was completely stunned. In the photo, the silver-haired youngster looked at the camera with a smile. Even the curve of the corner of his mouth seemed to be smart and handsome. He squinted his left eye, looking very flirtatious. The black ear stud was very eye-catching. And Almighty Qin cooperated with the youngster, tilting his head down in a very domineering manner. His dark eyes seemed to be overflowing with light, and he even showed his collarbone. He was really aggressive. The two people's temperaments were completely different. In the photo, not only did it not erase their original advantages, but it also highlighted each other's nobility. They were so handsome that people just wanted to scream. But the photo also had special effects. The pair of hairy black devil ears on the top of the head was really beautiful. And they were using pillow, right? What was going on? Sister Turtle's hand holding the mouse was a little confused. Again, she really was not a fan of the CP. But if it kept going like this, she couldn't stop thinking about it. Such a photo with Almighty Qin's words was very meaningful. What was Almighty Qin doing? Even if he was giving out candy, it was not like this. His official Weibo would be blown up. It would indeed be blown up. Over there, the person who wanted to use the topic of Spade Z to become popular was still interacting with the 2 or 3 people who claimed to be Spade Z's fans, wanting others to recognize her. On this side, there was already a huge uproar. He was so handsome that the whole screen was flooded. F***CK, F***CK, is there something wrong with my eyes? Group photo? A photo of us lying on the bed? Oh, so handsome. 2 demons, so handsome, so handsome. What should I do? Previous poster, you have no hope. Didn't you see the caption that the Almighty posted? The Almighty is on the left, and Spade is on the right. I don't want to say anything else. I just want to ask the Almighty, how long will you keep giving out sweets? I'm afraid my HP will be empty and I'll have a nosebleed. My heart is beating so fast after seeing this photo. Almighty, look at the way you're looking at Big Spade. It's so obvious. A long time ago, I had a crush on an esports guru. His Weibo was always posted every year. Moreover, it was a game guide. But now, he had changed. I don't want to tell you the reason, but as a single dog, I automatically accept this bowl of dog food. I really want to run 2 laps downstairs. My most beloved male god and my second most beloved male god are finally in the same frame. This situation. I actually feel so blessed. I want to be a CP fan. Chapter 337. After Qin Mo's fan mentioned it. Only then did the others realize that, indeed, the Almighty's Weibo was filled with Big Spade's Weibo, apart from the games that he had posted before. That's right, everything was about Big Spade. And if this had happened in the past, posting photos? Hee, the Almighty even wanted to wear a black mask to cover his handsome face when he was playing. The media didn't dare to take pictures of him. But look at this. Why did the Almighty post photos? And he blocked all other voices with these 3 words in such a domineering manner. What was he trying to say? Everyone knew what he was trying to say. The Almighty didn't just say it when he said he would protect Big Spade last time. Thinking back to the reply someone had sent here, most of them understood what was going on. The Almighty is here to get revenge for Big Spade. I like this way of getting revenge. I hope the Almighty will come here more often in the future. Almighty Qin and my Big Spade are in the same frame. Seeing this, Sister Turtle reposted Qin Mo's Weibo without hesitation and tagged Fujio. Attack, receive, immediately, show, poor my Big Spade, you are so handsome, but you still can't attack Almighty Qin. Spade's true fan saw Sister Turtle move, and he immediately followed. Attack, receive, immediately, show, touch my Big Spade, fight again next time? This basically depends on temperament. I firmly believe that my Big Spade is the attack, second only to 1 and above millions. Don't mess around, Almighty Qin just happens to be that one person. Qin Mo's fingers slid through the Weibo page, and he looked at those Spade's true fans tagging him, and the corner of his mouth curved up. That sentence, second only to 1 and above millions, Almighty Qin just happens to be that one person. It was inexplicably pleasing to the eye. Involuntarily, His fingertips moved, and he liked it. That Spade's fan, who never thought that she would be flipped, was stunned. Almighty Qin was really closer than she thought. Wow 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 wow. The Almighty gave me a like. The Almighty is saying that Big Spade is the attack. The Almighty is so black-bellied. I just want to know what my Big Spade can say. In the morning, you said I was so handsome, so I must be the attacker. Now I'm being attacked. Fujio had no idea what was going on the official Weibo account. She had a piece of hot toast in her mouth, one hand in her pocket, and the other hand was holding a tray. The food on the tray was especially sumptuous. You only eat fried rice? China Mo looked up from the phone screen and glanced at the youngster in front of him. The corners of Fujio's mouth curled up. Her smile was as bright as the sun, and it was hard to fade. I always feel hungry. It must be because of the lack of meat. It's also possible that I'm growing. Qin Mo's fingers were still moving. Remembering that the youngster was still in puberty, he frowned. Have you felt any knee pain recently? Fujio shook her head. No. Her chest would occasionally swell up, but it was true. How could she still be growing at this age? It was a little disadvantageous for her. Buy some vitamins after dinner. It's for prevention. Qin Mo was thinking about the situation he would face when he was growing up, but he didn't expect the youngster in front of him to be in a different situation. Chapter 338. Qin Mo lifted his lids and leaned back, sitting elegantly on the chair. You want to know? Let's see. As he said this, he pushed the phone in front of the youngster with a faint smile on his face. Fujio raised her eyebrows and looked at the screen that hadn't dimmed yet. There was a photo with 4 words: attack, receive, immediate, present. And all the comments, all of which were pitying her. The receive? Receive. Didn't the little cuties see her fierce and aggressive eyes? The Almighty was indeed aggressive, but she wasn't bad either. Fujio's fingers paused. No wonder the Almighty, who didn't let her take the phone, pushed it away from her. It was all a trick. Fujio couldn't enjoy the handsome photo of herself and the Almighty anymore. What attack and receive? Qin Mo looked at the depressed face of the youngster with the toast in his mouth and smiled happily. Don't talk. Fujio pointed at him. Qin Mo was a big brother, so he wouldn't listen to his little brother. Your fans have good taste, especially when it comes to our positions. Brother Mo, you are exposed, I am exposed, so I am also on the offensive. Fujio took the tray as she spoke, using food to make up for this defeat. That photo on Weibo had already blown Lin Feng up. He asked Yun Hu along the way, did Captain really sleep with Little Spade? What method did Little Spade use to get Captain to take a photo with him? And Captain even learned to say attack and receive. Shouldn't our team be full of straight men? Even if others are gay, Captain should be the representative of millions of straight men. You mean, can you be gay? Yun Hu showed his room card and walked into the magnificent hall. Lin Feng shook his head immediately. No. Then shut up and take the food. Yun Hu took a tray. Lin Feng fixed his eyes on it and strode towards Fujio's table. He was first shocked by the number of empty plates on the table, and then he said to Qin Mo seriously, Captain, I came to find Little Spade to eat together. Little Spade, let's see what else you want to eat. If he wanted to ask questions, he had to drag him away alone. Fujio wouldn't refuse good food, so she smiled and was about to get up. Qin Mo's voice was calm. He has already eaten 7 plates, 1 toast and 3 glasses of juice. Are you sure you want him to continue eating? These words were directed at Lin Feng. When those deep eyes looked at him again, there was a hint of pressure. Lin Feng immediately loosened his grip. Qin Mo raised the porcelain cup and took a sip of iced Americano. The chill immediately dissipated quite a bit. Since he couldn't pull them apart, Lin Feng could only beat around the bush. After all, the 2 main characters in the photo were there. Little Spade, how did you sleep last night? Where's classmate Feng? Why don't I see him? That's right, don't know that Captain and the others are already in the same room. However, Fujio replied to this question very meaningfully. She said in an evil tone, take a guess. Guess your sister. Was Little Spade his biological brother? If you're my brother, then tell me the truth. Lin Feng turned his face and kept communicating with Fu Jiu with his eyes. Fu Jiu held a piece of chewing gum in her mouth, and a bubble came out as she chewed. She looked so handsome, but she was asking for a beating. However, the captain didn't care about this guy. Chapter 339. Attack. China Mo raised his eyebrows and laughed. He said coldly, "It's the same whether you wear clothes or not. That face is too beautiful, so it'll be even worse if you take it off. Don't even think about it." Lin Feng. 10,000 points of critical hit. Fu Jiu couldn't help but laugh. Lin Feng felt that it wasn't suitable for him to stay here in this situation. Yun Hu stood behind him, dragging 2 plates. "The whole team has pictures of you with your shirt off. How can you say that you are the attack?" Fu Jiu was interested. "Where? Let me see." Lin Feng pulled Yun Hu over and said seriously, "Little Spade, I have something to discuss with your brother Yun Hu. You and Captain can continue eating." How could he pull Yun Hu with his strength? Yun Hu could knock him down with one hand. But Yun Hu liked to tease him, so he let Lin Feng pull him away. Fu Jiu saw that there was meat on the tray, and her eyes lit up. Unfortunately, the Almighty moved faster than her. He moved his fork and said calmly, "Let me help you destroy such a sinful thing. You want to see pictures of people with their shirts off? Heh, my brother's interests are really different. Actually, I only want to see Brother Mo's." Fu Jiu smiled and blinked her left eye. "So, Brother Mo, you can give me your phone and let me see it again." China Mo was not moved at all. "Your eyes are red, and you still want to take your phone? If you want to see it so much, I'll take it off in my room." Fu Jiu paused slowly. The Almighty was so cunning and not easy to deal with. And she didn't know if it was because she always flirted with him, but he was getting better at avoiding flirting. Fu Jiu was still a little depressed. Yun Hu and Lin Feng came with other team members. Because today was the last day of training, everyone was wearing a very handsome combat uniform. This attracted a lot of attention from the diners. They could vaguely hear people talking in Japanese. Are they esports players? It seems so. Every one of them looks very imposing. Unfortunately, they are not from Tokyo. There is a handsome young man over there, like a character from a manga. Esports was very popular in Tokyo. Even Lin Feng, a big man, felt that he was being watched. However, today, Secretary Liang really wasn't in the mood to replace Manager Feng and lead the Supreme Alliance to the training. He was standing at the entrance of the hotel restaurant. His expression was so conflicted that he didn't look like the capable and handsome CEO's assistant that he usually was. Who could tell him what the situation was? Their CEO. President Qin, who was so cold that he could freeze people to death, and no one in Jiang City dared to take a picture of him, was now on the hot search list. There were still 2 people in the photo, and both of them were extremely handsome. But Secretary Liang really couldn't appreciate that handsomeness. First, he made an international call to someone he knew, and with great difficulty, he suppressed the popularity on Weibo. In the end, Madam had called him. To call him at this time, it would be strange if Manager Feng did not feel conflicted. The waiter at the side couldn't stand it anymore. He stepped forward politely and asked, "Sir, is there anything we can help you with?" At first, the waiter spoke in Dongjing dialect. Seeing that Secretary Liang was still frowning, he repeated it in English. Only then did Secretary Liang realize that there were still people around. He immediately smiled warmly. "Thank you, but no, it's a phone call." As he spoke, Secretary Liang took a step and walked towards a quiet place. Chapter 340. Hello, madam. Secretary Liang had mixed feelings when he said the first sentence. If Madam asked him about the photo, how would he answer? Could it be that he felt something was wrong with CEO Qin recently? Or maybe it was nothing. It was just that the people in the same team had a good relationship. What the F***CK CEO Qin had been alone since he was a kid. Except for those in the compound, who else had he been close to? When he was in high school, he had a group of people following him. At that time, CEO Qin didn't look like a third-generation soldier. He looked like the boss of the school. Now that he was in college, he looked like a CEO. There were many people who admired CEO Qin, but the one who was especially close to him was Fujio. However, he could not rule out the possibility that it was a bond between brothers. He had to be honest. Secretary Liang calmed himself down and asked in a professional tone, "Madam, what can I do for you?" The beauty on the other side of the phone was a little depressed. "Liang, I am here. My son found you." Secretary Liang wanted to say that CEO Qin found me long ago, but Madam only found out now. His eyes were full of tears. "Why didn't you tell me that Mo was talking to a boy? You made me so excited." Secretary Liang's heart skipped a beat. "You knew?" "Yes, I knew." The beauty sighed. "I told you, it's impossible for him to change. Help me keep an eye on him. See if there are any other girls in front of him. If there aren't any, create an opportunity for him to meet them." Secretary Liang wanted to say that he had changed, but no, as the CEO's assistant, he couldn't just guess. "Yes, madam. I have arranged it, but CEO Qin is not happy. For example, during this special training in Tokyo, he felt like he was about to be abandoned. Because of the Cali team, CEO Qin looked at him with coldness. Secretary Liang knew that was a warning. "You can't go too far." The beauty thought about it and said, "Then you can pay attention to who he is close to. Guys are fine too, but don't let him be too cold." Secretary Liang opened his mouth. "Guys are fine too?" "Brothers, of course. Mo can't sleep alone, so I heard that he found a good friend to keep him company." After saying that, the beauty bit her teeth. "It doesn't seem like something he would do. It's weird." Secretary Liang. "So the president really slept with young Master Jiao last night. Those photos weren't taken randomly, right? Why did he feel even more exhausted?" "All right, I'm going to join the crew. Let's keep up the catchphrase." Secretary Liang listened to the sound of the phone being hung up. What the hell was the slogan? Madam asked him to do this, and he couldn't refuse. "It's not that I can't refuse, madam." But he couldn't refuse his boss. When Secretary Liang received this order, he would first report it to his boss. The boss smiled faintly and said, "That's good. You can train your undercover skills. By the way, your CEO Qin's anti-reconnaissance skills are very good. But you have to understand a mother's concern for her son. Go." In other words, my son will definitely find you, so you have to go too. Secretary Liang took a deep breath. He couldn't bear to look back on the past. He had to think carefully about how he was going to work from now on. First of all, Chapter 341. Because of the photo, the atmosphere among the Supreme Alliance members was a bit strange. Especially Feng Shang. His eyes were full of grievance. He wanted to sue the captain, but didn't want to see the lawsuit. Who hasn't seen the fighting video of Sakura Stream Squad? Qin Mo was the one who broke the atmosphere. Counting on Fujio? The young man only knew how to smile evilly, which made people think of elegance. Although Wuxia was no longer in this circle, he was a professional, so he would pay attention to this aspect. The ones who hadn't seen it were Shui Yaoyao, Feng Shang, and Fu Jiao. Everyone watch it again. Lin Feng is responsible for explaining. Qin Mo said and stood up. "Let's go to the hotel conference hall." Such a hotel usually had a conference hall, but it was expensive. But since Secretary Liang was here, this kind of thing would definitely be arranged properly. All the members sat on both sides of the conference room, which was a very cool scene that could only be seen in movies. Yoon, who skillfully turned on the computer, then plugged in a USB drive, and the picture was projected on the big screen in the conference room. The captain of Sakura Stream Squad, Yamaguchi. He used to fight with the captain, and he is best at close combat. According to the style of Sakura Stream Squad, he must be training urgently now. There are two other members. I am familiar with Lin Feng. This ranking match is 5v5, and Lin Feng and I will deal with these two. The most worth mentioning is him, Shuji. Everyone looked at the photo, and their eyes became sharp. It's him. Yes, it's the person we met in the training base yesterday. Yoon, whose expression didn't change at all. He just joined Sakura Stream Squad this year, but he has already become an official member. The reason why Sakura Stream Squad is so murderous this time is because of him. This person is best at sneak attacks, and his character is full of hostility when he operates it. He is famous for being bloodthirsty, so in this team competition, we need to be wary of him jumping out of the grass and suddenly attacking us. Someone couldn't help saying, his hand speed shouldn't be as fast as Little Spade. The hero is not just about hand speed. Little Spade can indeed avoid his sneak attacks, but our speed is not as fast as him. This is 5v5 ranking. Yun who put down the pen and reminded everyone of the most critical point. Here is the video of Shuji's sneak attack. Everyone watch it. Time is tight, and this is all we can collect. With that, Yun who tapped open the video. The members of the Supreme Alliance watched helplessly as the two people who were attacking on the main road were suddenly frozen in place by a red shadow that jumped up from behind. Then, the red shadow moved back and forth 3 times, completing a double kill in an instant. Surprisingly, he was unscathed. Such a person would be very troublesome to deal with, whether it was attacking or defending a city. The Supreme Alliance members all looked at each other. They saw the same thing in each other's eyes. The conference room suddenly fell silent. There was only one thought in everyone's mind, and that was how they would deal with this person if they encountered him. Everyone knew that the friendly match the next day would be no less difficult than the national competition. Shui Yaoyao and Feng Shang were even more shocked. As 2 pure newbies, they finally felt what really sports was. Joining the Supreme Alliance was just the beginning. Chapter 342. It didn't matter, they would definitely win. They still had Spade Z. Thinking of this, Shui Yaoyao and Feng Shang looked at Fujio together. Fujio didn't laugh this time. She just looked at the video, thinking about something. At this time, Shui Yaoyao and Feng Shang didn't know that in order to protect Fujio's eyes, Qin Mo didn't plan to let Fujio play. After watching the video of Sakura Stream's game, the atmosphere of the whole team changed. It was a kind of change in the eyes, which could make people immerse in it unconsciously. When everyone started training, it was already too late. Fujio's hands were a little itchy. In the beginning, she just sat there with a lollipop in her mouth. Later, her eyes began to involuntarily fall on the bright screen. Qin Mo sat far away from Fujio, put out the cigarette between his fingers, stood up, and walked to the youngster. Look up. Apply the medicine. Qin Mo was indeed a good brother, even carrying eye drops with him. When Fujio applied the medicine, she couldn't help but tilt her head to look at the screen. Qin Mo's fingers were still lifting the youngster's chin. Seeing him tilt his head, he didn't say anything. But Fujio opened her mouth. She blinked her stung eye, and became blind in one eye. I'd better play tomorrow. I'm afraid I can't stop that Shuji without me. His hand speed was really fast. Not just fast, but most importantly, you didn't know when he would come out. In the game, hiding in the grass could make you invisible. To deal with him, in addition to fast reaction and accurate positioning, the most important thing was to understand the way of sneak attack. Fujio was a hacker. Compared with Shuji, she was better at camouflage attacks, so she could deal with what she was good at. Qin Mo's voice was very calm. I'm here, don't worry. Fujio wanted to say something. Qin Mo raised his eyebrows. What? You don't believe me? Hearing that, Fujio laughed. I believe you. Then I'll cheer for you in the waiting area. When did it start? The two of them gradually became this close. In the beginning, they got along with each other with a smell of gunpowder. But now they both knew what each other was like. The trust of the strong didn't need to be said much. But Fujio still felt a little regret. I thought I could fight with you, Brother Mo. What a pity. When he said this, the young man was smiling. Qin Mo kept the eye drops and stuffed them into his trouser pocket. His other hand ruffled Fujio's silver hair. Don't say, oh. It'll be more believable. This guy's words were so annoying. How did he manage to endure it? Was it because he was good-looking? Fujio was indeed good-looking. She lifted her hand and placed it on Qin Mo's shoulder. Brother Mo, look at my serious eyes. I only saw the redness. Qin Mo frowned. It's not good to stay indoors all the time. I'll bring you out for a walk. Our goal is the National League. If your eyes are still like this, they will be affected. Fu Jiu really couldn't stay here. It hurt her eyes to look at the computer screen all the time. After hearing Qin Mo's words, Fu Jiu understood the gravity of the situation. She put on a plush black coat and followed Qin Mo out. This time, Secretary Liang didn't dare to follow anymore. The outdoor air in Tokyo was very fresh. In addition, because it was too cold, snow had already started to fall. Everything looked very beautiful. Chapter 343. But in the next second, Fu Jiu, who was about to walk forward, paused. The afternoon light shone on her body warmly. People were walking to and fro on the business street, and some were looking up. Some were exclaiming, some were laughing, and some were talking. Gosh, that must be our number one. The number one team in the whole server. My favorite Hoshino, he's so handsome. I even went to buy Hoshino's merchandise yesterday. I love him so much that I couldn't get a lot of things. Did you see that smile just now? My heart was trembling. That person was asking the girl standing next to Fu Jiu. Then he turned around and saw a silver-haired handsome young man who was no less handsome than Hoshino. He was stunned. Fu Jiu's eyes fell on the large LED screen on the business street. She was very familiar with that person. So familiar that she stopped abruptly. Of course, Qin Mo noticed that the young man didn't keep up. He turned around and saw that the young man was lifting his chin with his left hand in his pocket. His eyes were full of tenderness as he watched the scene on the screen. Tenderness? Not completely. There were too many other emotions. What kind of person could make someone stare at him like that? Qin Mo also saw that scene. Hoshino, an esports player who had emerged in the past 2 years, was extremely popular in Tokyo. The reason why he was liked by so many people was not only because of his achievements, but also because of his face, which was comparable to that of a movie star. Do you know him? This was Qin Mo's first question. Fu Jiu turned her head, and her silver hair fell down. How could that be? I just think he's handsome. Really? Qin Mo didn't continue this topic. Fu Jiu laughed. Actually, I know him, but he doesn't know me. I've watched his games, and the scene is good. Qin Mo looked at the young man again, and his voice was very calm. Got it. The Almighty said that he got it, but it seemed that he didn't believe her words. Fu Jiu also knew that her behavior was a bit obvious. It was only when Hoshino appeared that she stopped. But she didn't plan to do anything. In life, one had to look forward. Hoshino should be living a happy life now. That was enough to know. She didn't touch any of her bank accounts and bank cards because she wanted to cover up her identity. Once the matter here was settled, he would go and deal with the others. However, Fu Jiu didn't know that in the eyes of others, she had a different expression. Qin Mo looked at the youngster without any expression on his face. His fingers paused for a moment, and his long and narrow eyes seemed to have lost some of the warmth they should have. In the end, because they had walked too far, they had to take a bus back. Because of the roads, there was only public transportation. The Tokyo tram was heated and very clean. But as long as it was public transportation, there would be a lot of people. The scenery outside the car window kept changing. Fu Jiu felt a little squeezed. Qin Mo was even more unsuited for such an environment. Fu Jiu wondered if this was the Almighty's first time taking public transportation. She had been staring at that handsome and noble side profile for too long. An uncle came up and was about to bump into Fu Jiu. Chapter 344. Fu Jiu pressed her head against it. It smelled a lot better in an instant. Although the trams in Tokyo were clean. But there were many people, so it still smelled good. Now it was gone. Fu Jiu touched her nose and lifted her head. She found out that she and the Almighty were in such a position that she wanted to kiss him. Seriously. Don't blame her for thinking too much. She had been teased by the Almighty recently. If Qin Mo knew what the young man was thinking, he would have laughed coldly. Who was teasing whom? There were people behind and people in front. Qin Mo was like a dead end. Fu Jiu didn't move back. She pressed her head against Qin Mo's. Finally, she found it interesting, so she used her fluffy head to push against him. In such an environment, the Almighty couldn't do anything to her. Chinemo really couldn't do anything to the young man. He held the young man's back with one hand and grabbed the bracelet on the tram with the other. His face was extremely handsome. Who knew that the guy in his arms would be so naughty? After Fujio bumped into him, she clearly heard the Almighty's sigh. She was amused and continued to push. Chinemo lowered his eyes and looked at the head that was still trying hard in his arms. The little silver swirl on the top of her head made her look especially cute. He resisted the urge to throw the young man out of the tram like trash. He lowered his voice and said in a tone that sounded like an older brother educating his younger brother, "You've had enough, haven't you?" Fujio smiled. She pressed against him and stopped. After being teased by the young man, Chinmo's inexplicable discomfort dissipated a lot. Even the corners of his mouth lifted a little. He was a little crazy. Because the tram was too crowded. Therefore, there was nothing wrong with their current posture. It was just that Fujio's head was slightly below Chinmo's shoulder. The silver-haired young man lowered his eyes, and the man looked like he was abstinent and domineering. Someone wanted to take a picture of this scene. However, at the next stop, the two got off. Chinemo walked out first. It was a street with good air, but without that fluffy head in front of his chest, he felt a little uncomfortable. But even so, Chinemo didn't forget the young man's gaze when he stood under the building and looked up at the screen. They should know each other. It was impossible not to know from that gaze. But according to the information he got, the young man didn't have any interaction with Hoshino. That's right. Chinemo had investigated Fujio. At the very beginning. Just how early was it? As early as the first time Coco pointed at the computer and showed him a beautiful character in the game. Spade Z. The letter Z at the end successfully caught his attention. Z0. The technique was very similar, and it matched with his understanding of Z back then. His suspicions grew even stronger when he found out that Spade Z was capable of cyber attacks. But when he found out that Spade Z was Fujio, that layer of suspicion completely faded away. Even though he did not know what Zero looked like, he was sure it was a woman. Chinemo tilted his head and glanced at the youngster beside him. And Fujio, the rich playboy who used to pester him to be his sugar daddy, was unlikely to be Zero. But Chinemo didn't let go of any possibility. He sent someone to investigate where Fujio was on the day of the attack at the 5th Avenue 3 years ago. Chapter 345. Fujio saw that Chinemo was looking at her, and immediately smiled evilly. Then she felt her inflamed eyes itch, so she raised her hand to rub them. Chinemo was one step faster than the youngster. He grabbed her wrist, and his side profile was handsome. "Don't touch, there are many germs on your hand." Fujio felt that this kind of minor illness was harder to treat than a broken arm. She just needed to reattach the broken arm. Something like eye inflammation. Really needed time. Feeling that the youngster couldn't bear it, Chinemo simply took the youngster back to the hotel. That posture made Manager Feng, who had just arrived in Tokyo, stunned. He couldn't figure out the situation. However, Manager Feng was the smartest not to ask what he shouldn't ask. Before the official battle. With the return of Manager Feng, the Supreme Alliance, who had been depressed all afternoon, finally felt a little more at ease. The next day. The snow stopped, and the sky was blue and beautiful. The friendly match was held at the training base yesterday. Since it was a friendly match, of course, the media wouldn't be informed. But some people in Tokyo would always know about it through some grapevine. There were 1 or 2 esports reporters who came. Of course, their focus was on Sakura Stream, not a team that didn't even enter the top 4 in Wuxia. In fact, there is no suspense at all in this match. One of the reporters adjusted his camera, feeling a little bored. The opponent will definitely be suppressed by Sakura Stream and can't even move. Another reporter yawned. You can't say that. There is still something to watch in this match, such as Shuji's performance. My boss told me to write more. Hearing their words, another Tokyo esports fan who came to watch the match shook his head in disagreement. Reporters these days, they just spout nonsense without investigating clearly. Although he was from Tokyo, he wasn't a fan of Sakura Stream. It was Chinemo of the Supreme Alliance. Last year, the Supreme Alliance didn't enter the top 4 completely because Almighty Qin didn't participate. In this match, it was hard to say who would win. They are coming. The two reporters suddenly became spirited, and their eyes also shook with excitement. Snap, snap, snap. 3 consecutive shots were taken at Sakura Stream Team, who entered the field. Sakura Stream Team's uniform was in line with the local aesthetic of Tokyo. On the back of the pure white shirt, there was a logo and blooming cherry blossoms. The tallest among them was their captain, Yamaguchi. His height didn't look like someone who played esports, but more like someone who played basketball. Following closely behind was Shuji, who was the most popular candidate. He had a red bandage on his forehead, making his handsome face look even more devilish and murderous. As soon as the Sakura Stream people came in, the others who came to watch the battle also stood up. The arena wasn't big, but it could accommodate dozens of people. There were still a lot of Sakura Stream fans, and that side was full of spectators. In contrast, the audience on the opposite side of Sakura Stream School was calm and somewhat desolate. In Tokyo, it was not uncommon for people to fly from one city to another for their favorite esports players. From this, it could be seen that the other party's strength was nothing much. He didn't even have a die-hard fan. However, they did not know. The reason why there was no one here was because Supreme Alliance had always done things this way. In Manager Feng's words, every time their Almighty Qin showed his face, he had to pay by the second. How could he let anyone come in to watch and film? Chapter 346. The closer it was to the national competition, the more secretive their tactics were, the better it was for them. So Manager Feng simply hid the Supreme Alliance's movements. Even though the whole nation knew that the Supreme Alliance was in Tokyo, they didn't know where they were playing. So miserable. That reporter couldn't help but shake his head again. He thought it was a good topic, so he took a picture of the audience with only 1 or 2 people. Only by comparison can we show the strength of our Tokyo. Just as he was saying this, he heard a noise from the opposite side. Under the light and shadow, 13 people walked out neatly. Each of them was wearing the same uniform, a dark black coat with a circle of pure white fox fur, similar to a cloak, which made them look like knights that only appeared in comics. Which team's uniform looked like this? Wasn't it too extravagant? Extravagant? Was money a problem for the Supreme Alliance? Of course not. Manager Feng smiled like a fox, the kind that hid a knife in his smile. Qin Mo took the lead, Fujio stood on his left, and Yun who stood on his right. Everyone had their own unique style, which immediately formed a handsome and threatening scenery. Especially Fujio's silver hair, which was simply eye-catching, not to mention the lollipop in her thin lips. The 2 reporters on the opposite side didn't expect that the people of this team would have such an aura. Especially the one who took the lead, so noble and domineering, with an indescribable sense of shock. So handsome. Is this the weak team from Wuxia? They look pretty good. Maybe it's just their good-looking faces. But they are too good-looking. People like them can be stars. No matter how good-looking they are, they will be destroyed today. Boys and girls had different ways of thinking. In the esports arena, what was the use of being good-looking? Good skills were the real handsome ones. Shuji, who was standing over there, also saw Fujio. He immediately turned his head, gave her a thumbs up, and then slowly fell down. This action of his caused a commotion among the audience. Sakura Stream. Victory! Sakura Stream. Victory! Amidst the loud cheers, Fujio looked at his actions. He had one hand in his pocket, and his handsome face didn't look annoyed. Instead, the corners of his mouth curled up a little, looking like he didn't care at all. The youth's arrogant attitude was even more infuriating. Shuji narrowed his eyes, pointed at Fujio and said to Yamaguchi, "Captain, I'll keep an eye on him." Yamaguchi didn't know about the conflict between them yesterday, so he was a little surprised by Shuji's request. "Okay, but remember, the person we're going to deal with this time is Qin Mo. Qin Mo? Isn't it the one with the hand injury?" Shuji didn't take it seriously. "I'll leave him to you, Captain. I'll kill them after I'm done with that guy." Yamaguchi frowned. Shuji, Supreme Alliance is different from the teams we met before. Don't underestimate them. Chapter 347. Shuji seems to be fiercer than usual today. This is going to be interesting. When Shuji fights, even 4 people can't stop him. Is Shuji going to go on a killing spree? I'm looking forward to it. The passion of the fans was irresistible. In the midst of such cheers, Manager Feng shook hands with the manager of the other team with the same smile. Shall we start? The manager of Sakura's Stream Team wanted to say a few more words to show off their achievements, or at least to finish the small talk. But after hearing Feng Yi's words, he swallowed his words to show his generosity. Let's start. It was not an official competition, so there were no 1v1 or duo matches. There was only a 5v5 siege match. But even if it was a friendly match, it still followed the international esports rules. In the wild game of Hero, everyone could die an unlimited number of times and come back to the city to be resurrected. But in a real esports competition, everyone could only die 3 times. After the 3rd time, they had to leave the computer. Obviously, the focus of the so-called siege matches was to attack the city. As long as the opponent's city was destroyed, they would win. This was also the difference between Hero and other games, as it paid great attention to the cooperation of the team. Shuji couldn't sit still anymore. He put on the black wristband and stood up. His eyes were fixed on Fujio. But Fujio just laughed and leaned back with a lollipop in her mouth, looking really handsome and annoying. According to Shuji's temper, he got angry immediately. Little Spade, what are you doing? Why are you staring at him? Lin Feng wanted to make fun of her before going on stage. Unexpectedly, Fujio said seriously, this guy is impetuous, so provoking him will help us. If you want to provoke him, don't do it here. Let's go on stage. Lin Feng was about to pull Fujio up. But at this time, Qin Mo's calm voice came over, he won't go on stage. What? Not only Lin Feng, but also Yin Wuyao who was next to him was shocked. Little Captain won't go on stage? Little Captain is so good at fighting, he won't go on stage? Are you kidding me? His eyes are inflamed, so he'd better not play games for 3 days. Qin Mo's face was still as elegant as ever. However, that invisible pressure never disappeared. Lin Feng and Yin Wuyao couldn't help but worry. If Spade Z wasn't there, their attack. Yun who was calm. Captain, who's going to fight? You, me, Lin Feng, Yin Wuyao. Qin Mo said. Shui Yao Yao. Shui Yao Yao was stunned. Her. Could she do it? There were so many Supreme Alliance members here. She really didn't expect the Almighty to choose her. Qin Mo didn't say anything. She reached out her hand and touched Shui Yao Yao's head. You're good at healing, so you'll be in charge of supporting the offense. Run back and forth in the wilderness and heal whoever you see dying. Don't worry, it'll be fine. With Brother Mo here, you have to believe that Almighty Qin chose you because he has faith in you. The corner of Lin Feng's mouth would twitch every time the youth said, oh. Qin Mo watched the youngster's actions. His eyes turned cold, but he didn't say anything. After the commentator and the referee were in position, Qin Mo stood up indifferently, tilted his handsome chin, and bit the zipper of his jacket with his thin lips. He took off the jacket with his right hand and threw it to Fujio. Let's go. Chapter 348. Baby Feng was left behind. And before Almighty Qin left, he gave him a very important task. That was to keep an eye on his idol and not let that guy rub his eyes all the time. This was Almighty Qin's smoothness. But Feng Shang felt that this task was quite difficult, especially when he couldn't control his idol at all. Idol, Almighty Qin said not to let you rub your eyes. The Almighty is in the competition and can't see here. If you don't say anything, who will know? In fact, Fujio wanted to rub her eyes even more at this moment. It wasn't that she didn't believe in the Almighty's strength. She was worried about the Almighty's hand. But if the Almighty lost today, she would find a chance to kill Shuji more than 10 times. Thinking of this, Fujiu was about to raise her hand again. Qin Mo happened to turn his head, and his deep eyes were full of meaning. This was why it was hard to deal with a psychic. Whatever she did, he would know in advance. Fujiu had no choice. She put her hand down, smiled, and grabbed the phone that Baby Feng was keeping for the Almighty. Feng Shang felt that he really couldn't deal with his idol, the bandit. Could he find someone else to watch him? Fujiu took the phone and sent a WeChat message to Qin Mo. Brother Mo, are you going to look back to see if I'm rubbing my eyes during the competition? Qin Mo paused, took out the phone from his pocket, and then tilted his head to type. If you don't want me to look back, be a good boy. Now, give back the phone you took from Feng Shang. Seeing the Almighty looking at her, Fujiu threw the phone at Feng Shang with a lollipop in her mouth and laughed. I told you not to give it to me. Why are you so disobedient? Feng Shang. Who was the one who came up to grab it? Who was it? The people of Sakura Stream also noticed that Fujiu didn't come down. Shuji's eyes suddenly changed, and he was very angry. What do you mean? He spoke in Tokyo dialect. But this didn't affect Manager Feng's acceptance. Oh. This is our battle lineup today. Little Spade won't participate. Won't participate? Shuji's hands were almost broken. He had prepared for a long time, but the other side told him that he wouldn't participate. Let him come down. Shuji gritted his teeth, his face fierce. After listening to his words, the fans in the audience began to look at each other. What's going on? I don't know. Shuji seems very unhappy. Did that team do something wrong? Taking advantage of the wind, Shuji sneered. Your unknown team without him, are you sure you can beat me? Let me tell you, I want to compete with him. Tell him to come down. Yun, who understood Dongjing dialect. After hearing his words, he suddenly turned around, his aura extremely cold. Yamaguchi couldn't help reprimanding. Shuji! Shut up! Am I wrong? Shuji tilted his head. I know Captain is afraid of that Qin Mo. He hasn't played in the professional league for a year. How strong can he be? I'm giving Supreme Alliance a chance by sending that person out. Upon hearing this, Fujiu's beautiful eyes narrowed. She held onto the railing with one hand and jumped down from the audience. Her black coat was lifted up, and her cool pose drew gasps from the audience. Chapter 349. Under everyone's gaze. That handsome young man, who looked like a vampire aristocrat, walked up to Shuji with his hands in his pocket. He was so bloodthirsty and cold, like an avenger coming out of the darkness. That Qin Mo? Fujiu tilted her head, and her eyes were cold. How dare you call my brother that? Shuji wasn't annoyed, but felt his blood boiling. It's hot, isn't it? If it's hot, do it yourself. Do it myself. Fujiu paused and curled up her lips. I won't. To be honest, I've met a lot of people like you. Why should I compete with you just because you want me to? Is the Sakura Stream team a bandit, forcing others to compete? Feng Shang. Idol, believe me, no one looks more like a bandit than you right now. Fujiu said this in a Tokyo accent, and the crowd burst into an uproar. The opponent's agent hurried over and said, No, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that. Can't you guys just shut up and compete properly? Fujiu was a very protective person, and in her mind, the Almighty was the only one who had made her suffer. If the opponent said bad things about the Almighty, it would be like asking for death. Qin Mo didn't expect that the young man would have such a big reaction, although the timing wasn't right. But looking at the young man's fierce look, he was in a good mood for no reason. He walked over and rubbed the young man's head. Okay, go back. Remember, don't rub your eyes. Fujiu. How did the Almighty do it? He didn't forget to warn her at this time. Shuji was so angry that his chest was churning. Now there was only one thought in his mind, and that was to destroy the opponent and make the young man regret what he said just now. Thinking of this, he turned his head and was the first to sit in front of the computer. He pulled his fingers and put on the pure black headphones. The agent finally let out a sigh of relief. After all, he couldn't control Shuji. The teammates of Sakura's Dream Team didn't say anything. They knew what kind of player Shuji was. The opponent thought that Shuji was impatient and wanted to irritate him, but they didn't know that the angrier he was, the more brutal he would be when he killed someone. Compared to Shuji's murderous look, Almighty Chin was casual and noble. His slender fingers slid over the headphones, and he held the mouse in a very beautiful gesture. It made people feel like he wasn't holding a mouse, but a chess piece. In front of him was a chessboard. The young master was like jade. He didn't expect to see such inviolable people in modern times. This was the first thought that came to the minds of the audience. His second thought was, of course, to let Shuji kill them all as soon as possible. However, it was different from the people here. Among the two Supreme Alliance fans, one of them already felt like his blood was about to boil. 1 year. For a whole year, Almighty Chin hadn't played in a professional league like this. Although it was just a friendly match, only those who had played the game knew how exciting it was to be able to see it live. Crack. The game's music started playing. The scene officially entered. It was synchronized to the big screen in the arena. He's here. The two reporters raised their cameras. Even the commentators did not know why, but this time, they felt nervous like never before. Not to mention Shui Yaoyao, who was sitting in front of the computer. She only felt that her palms were sweating. But her eyes were very firm. This was the first battle. This was the first battle she would prove herself in. Attack. Chin Mo said these words lightly, but with a different kind of power. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.